Are you looking for an athletic scholarship? You're in the right place. This is the Recruit Me Athletic Scholarship Podcast, the longest running podcast on recruiting and athletic scholarships. We're here to help your family navigate the recruiting road all the way to an athletic scholarship. He's a recruiting expert and a dad of 2 college athletes. He has a wealth of experience to share. Here's Recruit Me CEO, Brent Hanks.
Welcome to episode 497 of the Athletic Scholarship Podcast. Today I bring back a past guest and a friend of the Athletic Scholarship Podcast, Paige Tonz. Paige is a mental training coach, the owner of The Confident Athlete, and a former D1 athlete as a catcher for the Northwestern Wildcats softball team. Paige was my second guest interview on episode 212 back in August of 2020, and she joined us again in episode 276 in November of 2021. Let's let Paige give us an update and also give us all the tools and resources that she has to help as a girl athlete confidence coach. I will have a link to the PaigeTonz.com website and her social media in this episode's show notes. With that, here's part 1 of the interview. Well, Paige, welcome back to the Athletic Scholarship Podcast for the third time.
I know. Thank you for having me back on.
In the introduction, I'm going to give our past episodes. That way people can go back and listen to your background. But please catch us up on what you're doing now and your business since we talked to you way back in 2021.
Well, it's not totally different. I mean, from 2021 till now, which seems crazy. That seems like such a long time ago. But not that long ago. I don't know. Still working with girls on the mental side of the game and working on building confidence and what that looks like. But actually, some new things just in this last, 6 months, I guess, is I used to work with girls ranging from 10 to 18. I actually have some college girls as well, too, that I've just worked with for a long time. I love working with those college girls, though. And I have a few that are in their freshman year in college. And it's been really, really fun to just be there for them through that first year because it can be like drinking from a fire hose that freshman year of college. A little overwhelming, but so exciting. So that's been really fun. Anyway, I worked with girls from 10 to 18, but I actually have recently transitioned to specifically working with high school aged girls. So maybe like some 8th grade if it seems like a good fit. But because I chose, and I really love working with the high school girls because they're starting to enter the recruiting process, which actually makes us go even more hand in hand in what we do. But they're in that recruiting process. And for me and for many other athletes that I've worked with and know that recruiting process can be just very stressful. It's such an exciting time, but there's also a lot of pressure that comes with it. So I really wanted to focus in on the high school girls in that process who are they have big goals, they have big dreams of playing at the next level. They want to play college ball. They need to execute and perform in these showcases and these camps and things like that in order to get to where they want to go. So my role and where I really love playing my part is helping them have the confidence and to be able to go and perform under pressure in those instances. Of course, it definitely bleeds into all of the pressures of the game and things like that and performing under any sort of pressure because playing, softball, baseball, there's pressure in every situation, every at bat. But really that's kind of been my focus lately and I've been really loving it. I've been loving working with the a little bit older girls and going really deep and helping them just show up and be their best selves and put their best foot forward and be able to show what they've worked so hard on for such a long time.
Are you seeing some new pressures coming along with some of the college changes, or are the old ones just still there and they're just amplified a little bit?
I think mostly for me and my perspective, it's still the old, still the old, not old things, but the things that have always kind of come up in that situation or in the recruiting process. like the social media has been around for a little while now with the recruiting process, but I think that adds another element too, and just like making sure that you're, doing all the things to put yourself out there and put yourself in the best position. In my role, what I do, I'm not necessarily like working on the actual recruiting process with them and showing them how to get recruited. Mine's like, from the mental perspective, but I haven't quite run into a whole lot of like portal transfer, all of those things quite yet. I'm sure that I'll probably see a little bit more of that as we continue to kind of like navigate that space. I have had a few girls who they were in college and they're playing, and then they entered the portal, and that could be kind of added pressure and stress. But no, I haven't seen a ton of that yet in like the area that I'm like, for the families that I'm specifically kind of reaching out to and speaking to, if that makes sense.
So it still goes back to an athlete performing well and giving themselves an opportunity to play at another level, no matter whether it's NAIA, Division II, Division I, they still got to go out and perform at a certain level when it counts.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit, just briefly, again, your high school athletic career, kind of a little bit about your recruitment, and then your college career, and then we'll kind of get into how you got into the mental training platform.
So a lot of me working with the high school age girls in the recruiting process kind of stems from a lot of my own like experiences and what I experienced through the recruiting process, and how it was a lot of stress for me, like kind of like a roller coaster ride. So I played a long time playing club and travel and stuff like that. But in my recruiting process, I was recruited really late. I had like one partial offer at the beginning of my senior year, which was very helpful, but I wasn't like totally sure if I wanted to go there. I mean, when I always had big goals and dreams of playing out of like Power 5, like Division I school, like a very competitive school, like going to the World Series, things like that, like I always dreamed about. So I had pretty high expectations for myself in this recruiting process. And I remember like, when those schools weren't necessarily reaching out to me, it was like, it was just kind of disappointing. It was frustrating. It felt like, why don't they want me? Or like, and I just didn't feel like I was performing the way I knew how to when it mattered the most at some of those showcases and things like that, to really show like, the kind of player I really was. So that was hard in that process. I was definitely recruited later because girls were, I knew a lot of girls that were like verbally committing early or had committed pretty early. I was definitely later than most of the girls around me. And I remember going into my senior high school season, so spring of 2009, and still hadn't like committed anywhere. And I only had that one offer, which was like a partial offer. And Northwestern, they had some injuries happen, and they were really in need of another catcher. So it was like such a weird thing, because normally like none of the recruiting happens in high school. It's always in travel and club. The head coach, Kate Drohan, she came out to watch me play at one of my games for high school. It was so funny because I live in Phoenix, or like in a suburb of Phoenix, and of course it rained. So, and it never rains. My game got rained out, and we had to have like this makeshift practice just so she could kind of like see me play a little bit. Anyway, so it was just kind of a funny, weird quirk in my... Yeah, a little extra pressure. It went really well, and then she wanted me to come out for a visit and things like that. Anyway, long story short, I went on my visit, loved Northwestern. I loved that it was high academics. I loved that they were very, very competitive with their softball program. And I ended up committing my spring season of my high school year, or my senior year, sorry. And so that was a huge relief for me because, and this sounds really terrible, and I don't want to discourage any girls from playing at a community college or that level or starting there, because there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's a great first step, especially if you're not sure where you want to go, or just like to keep playing and keep figuring out what the next step is. But like to me at the moment, when I was like 17, 18 years old, I felt like it was like going to be the end of the world if that happened to me. And because I had such high expectations in my recruiting process. So that it was just like a huge relief when I got that offer. And I was like, it was an exciting time for me. I finally felt like all of my hard work had finally paid off. Anyway, through the whole recruiting process, career playing softball, and then going into college as well, I struggled with not necessarily like whatever tell you like, oh, I'm not confident, but I just really struggled to like truly believe in myself and what I was capable of. I'll never forget like my parents and my coaches like telling me in my at bats like, just go out there and be confident, or just go believe in yourself. And I would be like, yeah, okay, that's great, like I would love to, but I just struck out like 2 times in a row and not really feeling that. And or if I was like in some sort of slump, and I really struggled with that like true belief in myself, or just doubting myself, or worrying about all the ways that it wouldn't turn out for me or wouldn't go well for me, and whether that was in my recruiting process or in my at-bats or that kind of thing. Anyway, my college career, freshman year, I actually earned the starting position as a catcher, which was awesome, amazing, was so excited, but I was not hitting well. And freshman, sophomore, and junior year, which seems very, very long, I felt like I was in this like never ending slump where I was just never going to be the hitter that I thought I was meant to be. I just really struggled with the offensive side of the game, and I beat myself up over it. There was lots of tears. It was just really hard. And I just felt like I was just, definitely disappointing myself. I felt like I was disappointing everyone around me. Really frustrated in those 3 years. I hit like a whopping 130 or something. Every time I didn't execute in my at-bat, I would typically get pulled out of the lineup, not catching wise, but just hitting wise. So it was just a long battle of struggle on that side of things. So I got to my senior year, and I just remember thinking like, gosh, like I'm really tired of feeling like this. Like I don't want to go into this last year just being like so disappointed and frustrated with myself and feeling the way I have the last 3 years. I was like, I just want to go out and like have fun and enjoy this last year that playing the game that I've put so much into. And I just had this mindset shift that was kind of happening because of the time constraint, right? Like my last year, I didn't have a lot of time left playing the game. And I just remember being like, I'm going to just go out and do my best, even though I was already doing that. It was like a recommitment. I was like, I'm going to have so much fun this year. Like that's what this is all about. Of course, it's like hard work and stuff, but it should be fun and like for the love of the game. And then I remember just thinking like, whatever happens, happens. Like it can't get worse, right? Like whatever happens, happens. I'm going to do my best, and it works out great. If it doesn't, whatever. When it came to hitting. And in that final year, because I was having this different outlook and this different approach to my senior year, I ended up doubling my batting average. I hit like 333 my senior year, and then I tripled the amount of at-bats that I got. So I created a lot more opportunities for myself, and it was just like I hit so much better. I remember getting to the end of my senior year being like, why didn't I know this or think like this before? Because I really was thinking about myself, and just like my thoughts were different. The way I was thinking about myself and hitting was different. It wasn't necessarily like I got so much better like mechanically or anything. It was truly like what was going on in my head. So fast forward, post-college, graduation, figuring out life and what I wanted to do, I eventually kept seeing like, oh, I see all these people like running businesses, doing what they love. Like, why couldn't I do that? And I really wanted to show and teach girls what I wish I would have known much earlier, and just the mental side of the game, self-development, and really these skills that help us be the best versions of ourselves and show up such a high level. And for these overachievers and girls who have really high expectations, like how to manage the emotions through that, how to bounce back from failure, all of that fun stuff. So I decided I really wanted to do that. And then I've been doing that ever since I think I'm hitting 7 years, like very shortly here in the next few weeks since starting my business.
Finding that yourself probably put it at more of the top of mind. If somebody had been hounding you the whole time, and maybe they were, and we just didn't accept it, it was probably more impactful for you in the long run, and then it's put you where you are today. So you've got your mental training platform. What is your business called?
So it's really just Paige Tonz coaching, but my program that I started with the high school girls, working on the mental part of the game and executing in the pressures of the recruiting process, is called Unshakable.
Are you kind of marketing toward the student athletes to contact you, or parents to contact you, or a little bit of both?
I mean, I definitely still get business, like word of mouth and referral and testimonials and things like that. But I am heavily on social media, just sharing my story, sharing others that I've worked with, their stories and their testimonials, talking a lot about this process and the struggles and the good things that could come out of it. And that's how I get a lot of conversation with families. Well, how this usually typically works is the parents typically reach out to me. Sometimes I have girls that are very they advocate for themselves and they start conversations with me, which is awesome. I always love that. But typically it's the parents that are the mom or dad that reaches out to me, and we just start to have, a conversation, and I get to find out a little bit more about what they're experiencing, what their daughter is experiencing, and where I can help and support them. And then, sharing what I do and the program to see if it's a good fit, and then we go from there.
And I'm going to try to put all your links in my show notes, but give us your website and then give us all your social media contacts.
Yeah. So my social media, my Instagram is @Paige Tonz, just how my name is spelled. My maiden name is very uncommon. I don't think I've ever heard anyone else have my maiden name. So it's always easy to find. So if you see Paige Tonz, it's probably me. And then my website is also the same, www.paigetonz.com.
That was part 1 of the interview with Paige Tonz. Next week, episode 498, will give you part 2 of the interview. Join me next week on your favorite podcast app or on the recruit-me.com website.